Some weeks in horror history feel like somebody spilled gasoline across the calendar and handed the genre a match. This one opens with old Universal shadows, jumps straight into Stephen King pyrokinesis, mutates into rage virus panic, drags Jason Voorhees back out of Crystal Lake, and then lets Godzilla stomp into the modern blockbuster age like he owns the place. It's a week about things that refuse to stay buried, vampires trying to escape their bloodline, children turned into weapons, infected cities that were supposedly under control, franchises that keep finding new life, and monsters so big they make every human argument look tiny. So don't touch the experiment. Don't trust the quarantine zone. And if the water at Crystal Lake starts bubbling, maybe let the fish have that part of the lake. Welcome back to This Week in Horror History. I'm your host, Enrique Couto, bringing you your weekly time machine through the creepiest anniversaries in film, TV, books, games, and beyond. Tonight we're talking about May 11th through the 15th. Coming up, Dracula's legacy gets a haunted aftershock in the Universal Monster era. A rage virus sequel turns outbreak horror into military collapse horror. Jason gets a psychic component on the unluckiest Friday possible, and Godzilla returns as a modern American kaiju and a blockbuster. Then, right after the break, our spotlight goes to a Stephen King adaptation where the scariest thing in the room is a young girl who can burn down the world. May 11th, 1936, Dracula's daughter arrives, and Universal Horror gets one of its strangest and saddest vampire follow-ups, at least until Dracula 2000. Gloria Holden plays Countess Maria Zaleska, a woman trying to free herself from Dracula's curse after his death. That's what makes the movie fascinating. It's not just another monster on the loose, it's a vampire story about inheritance, addiction, repression, and the hope that evil might be something you can cure. The result is elegant, chilly, and unusually mournful for the classic monster cycle. It's not as iconic as Lugosi's Dracula, but it casts a long shadow, especially for vampire stories interested in longing as much as blood. I think this one is highly underrated, and you know how much I love a good black and white horror movie on a Sunday afternoon. If you want to give Dracula's Daughter a revisit or watch it for the first time, it is available to rent or buy on Amazon Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. May 11th, 2007. 28 weeks later opens and the rage virus comes back with uniforms, floodlights, and a very bad sense of official confidence. The first film felt like a waking up after the end of the world, but the sequel asks what happens when the people in charge decide the nightmare is over, before the nightmare gets the memo. The opening sequence is still a masterpiece of pure panic, but the real dread is institutional. Checkpoints, containment zones, soldiers on rooftops, and the terrible moment when a plan becomes a slaughterhouse. It grossed about $64 million worldwide and kept the 28 Days Later universe alive long enough for the franchise to come roaring back. Very recently with 28 Years Later and 28 Years Later Bone Garden, respectively, both of which, in my opinion, should have performed better at the box office because they were a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm sad that we probably won't get another 28 Years Later to wrap it all up, but I digress. I liked them. I really did, and 28 weeks later is definitely a bit on the underappreciated side looking back, at least in my opinion. I revisited the films before 28 years later came out, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed them and how much they held up today. So if you want to take a fresh stroll to the contamination zone, it's available to rent or buy on Amazon Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. Imagine that. May 13th, 1988, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, opens on an actual Friday the 13th because sometimes the marketing gods do indeed smile upon the wicked. This one is where Jason meets Tina, a traumatized young woman with telekinetic powers, which means the movie is basically Jason versus Carrie at Crystal Lake, and how could you top that? It also marks the first film Kane Hodder portrayed Jason Voorhees in, giving Jason a heavier, angrier physical presence that would define the character for an entire generation of fans, myself included. The film opened at number 1 and grossed about $19.1 million domestically. Not the franchise's peak, but enough to keep Jason chained to pop culture forever. These films are serious comfort food to me, both the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I watched them a ton growing up, and it's important to mention that while it only made $19 million domestically, it likely cost well under $5 million. And marketing for Jason Voorhees at that point was pretty easy going because everybody knew about Jason. Now, of course, if you want to talk about the Friday the 13th bomb of the entire original series, well, don't worry, because in the next year, Jason would, he'd take Manhattan, and the rest is history. If you want to head back to camp and revisit the original Kane Hodder Jason Voorhees performance, Friday the 13th Part 7 is available on Paramount Plus, or you can, of course, rent it at the usual suspects, Amazon Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. May 16th, 2014, Godzilla returns to American theaters, and the MonsterVerse takes its first big radioactive breath. Gareth Edwards treats Godzilla less like a superhero and more like a disaster that you pray never passes over your city. The movie is patient, sometimes almost cruelly so, but when it finally lets the creature stand tall, it understands the awe of scale. Soldiers falling through smoke, cities folding under ancient forces, and humanity realizing it's not actually the main character of the planet. And it was a major hit, about $529 million worldwide on a reported budget of $160 million. And it opened the door for the modern Godzilla Kong era, which is still going strong right now. I'm literally watching the Apple TV series Monarch on its second season right now, and when this Godzilla movie came out, it was a big deal for a lot of reasons, and one of them was that American audiences were rightfully so pretty skeptical about the idea of an American-produced Godzilla movie because, we had that one in 1998 with Matthew Broderick, and that's all we need to say about it. And as a lifelong Godzilla fan myself, I gotta admit that Godzilla from 2014 really did scratch that kaiju itch. And I'm still amazed that the American Godzilla series is pretty much a kaiju series, which means that the focus is often on monsters fighting monsters and not strictly humans fighting monsters. It's a minor delineation, but it is a big difference between what we tried to do with the first American Godzilla versus what Japan and Toho had been doing with Godzilla since nearly the very beginning. Plus, I just showed Rachel Godzilla's Revenge the other day. Oh, I love that. I love that film. It's one of my favorites, and I love that it's considered the worst of the Godzilla movies. Yet I love it so much. But That is quite a digression. If you want to give it a watch, whether you've seen it before or not, it's of course available to rent or buy at Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Fandango at Home. It's also available on YouTube. It's available on Google Play. So get yourself some Godzilla and have a great time stomping the city. Tomorrow on Weekly Spooky, high school revenge gets messy, bloody, and very undead. Meredith Ridley is the kind of girl who makes an entrance. Violet hair, pink leather jacket, zero fear, and a talent for making enemies fast. But when jealous Queen Bee Lita Holloway decides Meredith has gotten too close to her boyfriend, one ugly night in the backwoods of Strickfield turns into a murder by the lake. And that should be the end of it. Except, in Strickfield, the dead don't always stay where you leave them. Meredith wakes up underwater with a knife still buried in her chest, a hunger gnawing through her guts, and a brand new craving for revenge. From the lake to the highway to a junkyard full of secrets, this one goes from teen rivalry to full-blown zombie chaos, complete with a car crusher, a shotgun, a love triangle that literally refuses to die, and the most disgusting second chance at romance you've ever heard. It's nasty, it's funny, it's wild, it's Undead Triangle by Rob Fields, and it's on tomorrow here at Weekly Spooky, where love bites back. So make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss this one. All right, let's take a quick break from the zombies, the other kinds of zombies, the giant monsters, and so on and so forth. When we come back, we're going into our deep cut spotlight from May 11th, 1984, about a little girl, a secret government experiment, and the terrifying question, what happens when the weapon you built learns to hate you? All right, we're back. Let's play with fire. May 11th, 1984. Firestarter opens and Stephen King gives the monster movie formula a very human fuse. The setup is a secret experiment, psychic powers, a shadowy organization called The Shop, and a child who becomes both victim and threat. Drew Barrymore plays Charlie McGee, a little girl whose fear and anger can ignite into actual flame. David Keith plays her father, trying to protect her from people who do not see a child at all. They see property, a test result, and most importantly, a weapon. And that's where Firestarter is still effective today. The effects and pacing belong to the early 80s, but the core anxiety has aged like fine wine. Adults building systems they can't control, then acting shocked when the human being inside that system fights back. It's not the wildest King movie ever, or even the scariest, but it has a nasty emotional hook. Charlie is dangerous because people made her dangerous. The fire isn't just spectacle, it's trauma with a temperature. At the box office, it earned about $17.1 million in the US and Canada, against a reported $12 million budget. So, while not a monster hit, it is a durable Stephen King title that kept smoldering in reruns, video stores, and, my favorite, late-night cable. I've always felt like this one was a sleeper, but a really, really good one. If you've never seen Firestarter before, You really need to check it out. It's available to, you guessed it, rent or buy on Amazon Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. And don't get it mixed up with the 2022 remake, which was fine at best, but the original, it really has everything you need. Now it's time to bust out the creepy candles for some horror-related birthdays, and we're starting on May 13th, 1986, when Robert Pattinson was born. From Twilight's vampire superstardom to The Lighthouse and The Batman, a genre-adjacent actor who keeps choosing weird shadows to follow. When I was a young man, I definitely fell into the bullying Twilight camp, and I'm still not a fan of the movies per se, but Robert Pattinson is a hell of an actor. I mean, there's no doubt about it, whether it's The Lighthouse, which was really an exquisite piece, or the truly fascinating and harrowing Good Time. I love his work, so happy birthday, Robert Pattinson. Born on May 16th, 1969, David Boreanaz, Angel himself, the vampire with a soul who helped define late 90s supernatural television. I mean, come on, Buffy and Angel had a massive effect on just about everything pop culture related to ghosts, vampires, demons, and so much more. So happy birthday, David Boreanaz. On May 16th, 1986, Megan Fox is born. Forever tied to cult horror through one of her earliest hits, Jennifer's Body, a movie whose reputation only grows sharper as the years pass on. While she's had a massive career with many mega hits and just generally being the hot chick in whatever movie or show she appears in, Jennifer's Body really helped her make a mark, or maybe leave a mark, on horror history. So happy birthday, Megan Fox. And finally, born on May 17th, 1955, Bill Paxton. Whether it's Aliens, Near Dark, Predator 2, Frailty, he's one of the great human faces whenever you enter monster territory. Plus, he's just sincerely one of the greatest actors to ever live, in my opinion, my humble opinion. He's incredibly talented. His brushes with the horror genre are always highly memorable. I mean, come on, Near Dark? We Keep Odd Hours. Come on, that's a great film. A phenomenal film. But his directorial debut, Frailty, is a film I consider to be both a horror movie and just a fascinating drama all at once. That's a movie you really need to revisit, Frailty by Bill Paxton. So a very happy birthday to Bill Paxton. For our then and now this week, I want to talk about how horror is learning to survive mutation. 1936 gives us the vampire as inheritance. 1984 gives us psychic fire as a government-made curse. 1988 gives us the slasher sequel turning Jason into a near mythic force. 2007 gives us outbreak horror as failed containment. And 2014 gives us Godzilla reborn as blockbuster mythology. Different monsters, but same lesson. Horror history does not ever stay dead. It simply adapts and finds a way out of the grave. All right, my weekly recommendation is going to be a little polarizing, and honestly, that's how I like it. On May 17th, 2024, The Strangers Chapter 1 opens in theaters. And I know I went into this a little bit when I was talking about Chapter 2, but, well, deal with it. Rennie Harlin's reboot/sequel launcher sends a young couple into a remote cabin and lets 3 masked intruders turn the simplest question in horror into a whole evening of dread. Why are they doing this? It's a stripped-down home invasion horror with a franchise machine behind it, but that's what makes it fit in this week's lineup. A lot like Firestarter, 28 weeks later, Friday the 13th Part 7, and Godzilla, it's horror about old fears getting repackaged for a new cycle. The masks may change, the calendar rolls forward, but the knock at the door stays the same. And I really enjoyed the hell out of the Strangers Chapter 1. I thought it worked. I thought it was very tightly directed. It was very tense. It was simply meant to freak you out and make you squirm in the movie theater, which is, at the end of the day, all I'm hoping for. I love when they reinvent the wheel very well, but sometimes you just want an expertly made hamburger. And that's The Strangers Chapter 1, and I enjoyed Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 quite a bit as well. Really fun trilogy. It's available to watch free with ads on the Roku channel, and of course, to rent or buy on Prime Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. Well, my spookies, that's your trip through May 11th to 17th in horror history. Don't forget, tomorrow, Wednesday, there's a fresh horror story waiting for you on the WeeklySpooky feed with Undead Triangle. It's one you do not want to miss, and next Wednesday, we're celebrating episode 400 of WeeklySpooky with a very special episode with a very special guest star that you might recognize from films like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Feast, and From Dusk Till Dawn 2, Texas Blood Money. But that's the hint I'm going to give you. Speaking of, I need to get back to work on that bad boy, so you all stay subscribed because there's always something fun and spooky here on the feed. Friday, there'll be a little surprise for you, in fact. But make sure you return here next Tuesday for more horror history, and remember, our days are numbered, because that's how we tell them apart. See you then.